Of course, there are eternal spoilers ahead, so back off if you haven't seen it. Get out of here. Okay, we thought COVID was the worst thing to happen to the MCU since Iron Man 2, but it turns out that the MCU finishing the roadmap that it's been on since the beginning of time might have been worse. Obviously still not as bad as Iron Man 2, but it's pretty bad. The Infinity Saga is a neat little 23 film franchise that spanned over a decade, cost $5 billion to make, and grossed over $23.5 billion in return. It's massive. It's almost as big as James Cameron's ambitions for the Avatar sequels. But after everything led to Thanos and his shiny glove, the world, universe, and now multiverse have opened up so wide that you could fit Tony Stark's ego through that gap. And I love that. I think it's great. But here's the problem. We don't know where the hell any of it's leading. Oh, we can sit here and try to pull some threads together. In the format of the universe now having all of these major events, it might be a good thing. After all, Spider-Man No Way Home feels massive. Doctor Strange 2 feels massive. Thor Love and Thunder feels like it's going to be massive. All of these big Avengers 4.5 sort of level events in Phase 4 is great. But there is a problem with all of this. Even if you watch all of the shows, all of the movies, remain faithful to the core in every aspect of your daily duties, read your comic books before bedtime, and pray to Kevin Feige for good, healthy box office returns. Yeah, it might be a cult now. Even if you do all of that and keep up to date, you could still be left baffled by which of the plot threads is the big one. That's because there's no Avengers. There isn't an Avengers team in universe right now. As much as the end of Shang-Chi teased that there is still being thought put into protecting the Earth by those who remain, we don't have any kind of announcement regarding another Avengers event or film, and even if we did get one, there is a very minimal chance they could fit everybody and everything that now matters in the MCU into one film. For every major character they killed off in Endgame, they've introduced another 10. The MCU is Hydra now, and we're all trapped inside of it, loving it forever, because they haven't even introduced two of the biggest Marvel Comics teams yet. So where is the MCU heading? There are several major answers to that question. Eternals provided us with an easy blueprint direction, the grand creators of the universe and everyone and everything, literally the earthly perception of gods, the Celestials. Creators of the Eternals and their arch rivals, just sounds like they wanted something to go with their popcorn. Did they also create Chloe Zhao so that she could make the film that they could then have with their popcorn? Which they also created? Oh god. So Eternals introduces 11 new major MCU heroes, kills 2 of them, turns 2 of them evil, then kills one of them, and turns the other one human. Unclear whether she still has her powers, but it feels like she might just be ignored either way going forwards. We'll talk a little later about Kit Harington in that post-credit scene, but the other stinger introduced us to major player number 12 in Harry Styles as Starfox, brother of Thanos. Before you start angrily typing a comment, no, I'm not suggesting that Starfox is going to take the place of Thanos and become the new MCU big bad. That would be weird. That would... Harry Styles? He immediately gave off a more youthful Star-Lord vibe to me, and that could be interesting. Eternals and the Celestials, though, it very much feels like it's just its own thing. It's definitely going to lead into a fascinating sequel that'll span across the MC universe and introduce Harry Styles as Star Fox properly, and probably a bunch more characters. But I don't think what we saw in Eternals is going to become a bigger part of the MCU going forwards from here. Arishem, he doesn't really have a problem with Earth, since the Celestial that's in the Earth core is dead now. He only wants the Eternals that killed the Celestial and sacrificed the birth of billions of new lives. That is a tricky situation, huh? Now, the simple answer about where the MCU is currently heading in an Earthbound sense is the Dark Avengers. The last 2 MCU projects that have featured non-super beings were Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which introduced us to Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. What is that name? And then Black Widow, where she popped up again, proving just how important it is to watch every Disney Plus show if you want to get the films anymore, even a little bit. John Walker and Yelena Belova have already been recruited by Julie Louis-Dreyfus' character, and it's very interesting that this is the sort of team that's going to build up into a very real threat. It's going to reach a crescendo point and could be a very nice theme for Avengers 5, whether that features this team as the Avengers try to tackle a different force, or features them uniting to team up against whatever heroes can muster against them. The big problem with that for me is how is she going to really find many superhero beings? Neither John Walker nor Yelena Belova are actual super beings, if you will, though John Walker's had the formula now. He's pretty tough, pretty scary, just feels like a big roidy boy. But in terms of other heroes that she can parallel, obviously there are other ones on Earth. She could get Baron Mordo, for instance, to parallel Doctor Strange. Could work. But how is she going to find a bunch of aliens? What other connections does she have? We don't know a lot about her characters, so she might find more going forwards, but it doesn't feel like it's going to span the cosmic side of the MCU. Outside of that, though, there is Black Knight coming out of Eternals. We haven't talked about that stinger too much, but Kit Harington's Dane Whitman being talked to by Blade himself, oh boy, that is going to open a whole new side to the MCU, a whole new dark corner that's going to be on the darkness level of What If Episode 4. No, nothing is. Nothing's that dark. But it is an interesting part of the MCU that we just haven't been introduced to at all yet. The idea of vampires and zombies and God knows what. It's just a lot different to the more slightly grounded magical side of things that we've had so far. It's going to go full magic madness, and you're going to have Blade, you're going to have Moon Knight, you're going to have Black Knight, you could have Ghost Rider, you could see Sony characters like Morbius or Venom or Kraven jumping into that dark side of things. You could see characters like Punisher being introduced again there. There's a lot that you can do with that, but at least until the Blade film is released, we don't know where that's heading. I imagine some of those kind of characters will form a team of Night Avengers, Black Avengers, no, not Black Avengers, don't say that. They'll form a different sort of team that will be very interesting, and they will build to something, I'm sure, but I don't think, again, it's going to span across the whole length and breadth of the MCU. It's going to focus on that darker corner of things. So again, it's not really the next Thanos. So continuing with our main MCU materials, what's up with Wanda Maximoff? Becoming Scarlet Witch levels up her powers a long way, and WandaVision gives a lot of interesting information about where her absolutely mental character might be heading from here. This leads into Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, where Wanda will be playing an important role. She'll be doing some kooky stuff, maybe creating a few new dimensions, whatever, you know? And it's all probably in the name of getting her kids back who aren't real, but she wants them to be. That's just, how does that work? It doesn't matter. I don't think she'll be the outright villain of the film, but she will probably be being manipulated by somebody into doing some bad shit. And it's not going to be Doctor Strange's first time dealing with multiverse shenanigans either, because he's already played an important role in What If, admittedly not this Doctor Strange, and he's messing with Peter Parker in No Way Home. Is it him? There's other theories about that. I think it doesn't matter. But Wanda Maximoff, Doctor Strange, Peter Parker, important players, but where's the main MCU villain potential in any of this? Well, Wanda isn't the only guest in Doctor Strange 2. We know there's going to be shenanigans, maybe alternate versions of different characters. Xochitl Gomez is making her MCU debut as Miss America, and it's a film with such scale that other cameos are likely. One of the most heavily rumoured cameos is Tom Hiddleston as Loki. Dark Avengers, Celestials, big pieces of the MCU going forwards will probably lead to some very interesting things. But Loki showed us the next Thanos, make no mistake about that. Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror popping up randomly in Loki seems very interesting for a number of reasons. Firstly, there is going to be a Loki Season 2. This could very much just be a Loki show villain. It would be weird and surprising given that Kang the Conqueror is a major Marvel Comics villain and is someone who could easily be on the level of Thanos. But you could almost convince me that they've just introduced a cool villain for the Loki show to drag another few good years of Tom Hiddleston's career into mischievous god fuckery. Unfortunately, you can't, because it came on the back of the announcement that Kang would be introduced in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And as such, I start to get the feeling that perhaps, maybe, he's going to be spread across the whole MCU. And it makes sense, because No Way Home and the Doctor Strange sequel seem like the biggest films going on right now, and they're multiverse stories. What If was a huge and interesting landscape event, and it was a multiverse story. Thanos really was the biggest threat in the universe. Now, you could go smaller and more intimate from now on, have phases 4 and 5 focus on the Dark Avengers building up, but honestly, they feel like more of a Captain America 4 villain than an Avengers 5 villain. Probably. What's happening in the MCU now is that they're slowly, probably very slowly, building Kang up to be the most major villain and name in the multiverse. He's going to appear in Ant-Man and the Wasp. He's going to appear in Loki Season 2 going forwards. He's going to appear probably in the Young Avengers when they bring that together, because that was always the big story. Our universe's Kang was a young guy, joined the Young Avengers, and then found out his destiny to become Kang the Conqueror, and got a little bit worried about that. He'll probably appear in What If, because there's only so many multiverse level threats that can bring all the threads of a season together in that show, and Kang is most of them. Unlike Thanos, this squirrely, narcissistic presence that Majors brought to the character is going to worm his way into every facet of the MCU, having direct confrontations and specific quarrels with so many characters over the course of maybe the next 10 years, leading to an epic final confrontation. So what does this tell us? Firstly, Doctor Strange is probably the most important MCU hero going forwards. Secondly, the MCU does have the level of incredible direction it's always had. Probably. Thirdly, Loki is Marvel's most important show, and not just because of all the self-cessed. Of course, I could be wrong. Kang could cross randomly into Ant-Man and be no more than the endgame situation for Loki as a show. The Dark Avengers or Celestials could take center stage, coming after the characters left behind in the wake of Endgame and all the new ones constantly appearing. But for such a hugely important Marvel Comics villain to be introduced and start wreaking havoc in every Marvel project he can for years to come as a constant nuisance with the feel of Loki but the power of Thanos, ooh, that right there is some movie magic. What are you doing? The video's over. There's nothing left. Oh, a call to action. You want a call to action? Subscribe. Do it. Subscribe. Yeah. Comment. What other theories about Marvel and the MCU do you have going forward? What do you want to see talked about? Like the video.